In a democracy, the most important office is that of the private citizen. Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis. President Eisenhower once said, "People, even more than governments, are promoting peace." Indeed, I believe that people want peace so much that one of these days, governments will hear their pleas, listen, and act. In the early 1970s, at the height of the Cold War, concern about nuclear weapons development gave renewed strength to a global anti-nuclear arms movement. Nuclear freeze efforts swept the country. Including concerts, protests, ballot initiatives, and conferences. Those who stepped forward included actor-director Paul Newman. He represented the United States at a UN General Assembly session on disarmament.
Just one of our strategic submarines carries more explosive power than was detonated in all of Europe and Japan during World War II. Yet, we can continue to research, test, and build more destructive weapons.
In 1980, Randall Forsberg, a peace activist committed to disarmament, introduced the first nuclear freeze initiative. In March 1982, Representative Ed Markey, with the support of other progressive members of Congress, introduced a bipartisan nuclear freeze resolution in the House of Representatives.
Citizen lobbyists represent tens of millions of Americans who support a nuclear freeze. Senator Kennedy is leading the fight in the Senate. The case is overwhelming for a freeze now, and then for the reductions which are so essential for the future of not only arms control, but all humanity. I believe that individuals can make a difference. Individuals that care about humanity, care about our security, and care about the future of this nation.
Is nuclear disarmament an appropriate issue for local governments to address? This issue sparked contentious public debate. In April 1982, in Palo Alto, California, a Soviet-American weapons freeze is on the City Council agenda. The council members are divided on whether or not this issue should even be discussed. On the day of the meeting, people gather to express their support for ending the nuclear arms race. The citizens take their signs and march to City Hall. The purpose of this demonstration is to send a message to their city council. When they arrive at City Hall, organizers of the march have arranged for a musical welcome.
Would you believe in a dream when I tell you that it's true? Could you believe, precious friends of mine?
The citizens have come to the meeting to ask the council members to support the nuclear freeze resolution. Before the meeting, the mayor announced that he will be making a motion to remove the freeze resolution from the agenda.
The issue is not whether or not concerns about nuclear weapon expansion, or whether a freeze should be enacted. It is the propriety of our municipal council assuming a leadership role in international issues. I feel that this issue tonight should be removed.
The issue cannot be addressed if you're going to use tricks to shut up debate.
The majority of the council agree with the mayor. Though they may personally support a nuclear freeze, they feel that a national concern is not in the jurisdiction of local government. Though the freeze resolution is not yet on the floor for council discussion, Councilmember Ellen Fletcher presents a motion to ensure the citizens the right to speak out.
I move that the public be permitted to address the council on agenda item number 18.
Some of my colleagues will argue that this is not a local issue. I wish that we didn't have to have motions like this. I second this motion out of fear, hope, and moral obligation on such essential issues, not just our right, but our obligation as council members to speak out on it.
I personally abstain from taking a position on a national issue. We should involve ourselves with local issues over which we have jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction is at the heart of tonight's debate. Levy's concern is shared by Michael Cobb. While as individuals both are in favor of a nuclear freeze, they question whether local government should address the issue.
We have a national issue whether we like it or not. The emotion is here, the feelings are here, although I think Mr. Levy is correct. I'm afraid we've reached the stage in this meeting tonight where the public does have to be heard, so reluctantly. Well, I, like many of you, personally support a nuclear freeze. I share the concerns of those many people, and I emphasize many, who phoned, written, and even come by my house over this weekend about the frightening nature of the arms race. I do not believe, however, that I possess the necessary information to have the City Council formally support the client pledge proposal. I also share some of Mr. Ireland and Mr. Levy's concerns about the appropriateness of formal council action. But believing all this, I still feel that citizens should have the right to address the City Council, even if I personally oppose Council taking a stand itself on the issue. And I will propose the motion to table and allow the public.
Though the council has now agreed to hear the public, most council members still believe that local government should not take an official position on this national issue. Can people convince the council that world peace is a local issue?
The issue before us transcends all other concerns. I remember when the atomic bomb was dropped. I was in my 20s. I remember the city of Nagasaki. I saw it before the bomb was dropped. Nobody asked me or my countrymen whether that bomb should be dropped. We left this to those who know what to do. We have a responsibility to life. Not only human life, but all life. Why must we wait for such a catastrophe? Why does this city not take action when there is time to take action?
We have collected over 1,000 signatures of Palo Alto High School students agreeing with this statement. We, the youth of this country, are deeply concerned about the threat of a nuclear holocaust. We ask that you immediately cease any additional development and production of nuclear weapons and to hasten a reduction of arsenals. We feel that without this reduction, our future is in jeopardy.
The state proposed to drop pesticides on our community. It wasn't an issue for the council to take a stand on. How can you take a stand when someone's going to drop pesticides on their community, but not when someone's going to drop a nuclear bomb?
I'm the oldest person here. I got my 89th year. Only place I'm going to live as long as you do. Because it's all been right at the same time.
I'm speaking for a lot of people here when I say that we feel alienated from most of the political process in this country. Many of the issues in the country are decided in smoke-filled rooms and in the form of the greased palm. This is a chance for us to participate in our government, and you are our government. This is the smallest level, and at the same time, it is the greatest level.
Millions of people throughout the United States have made their statement. Town meetings, city councils, state legislatures, all over the country have made their statements. But now it's time for you to make your statement. Your belief in nuclear freeze as an individual does not carry the weight that a legislative body representing the people of this town or any other town in this country, that you as individuals have a responsibility to join together to make a statement that can be heard. So I just ask you, use your voice as effectively as you possibly can.
"40 people speak to the council over the next 2 hours. It becomes a soul-searching time for the council members. They listen attentively as they decide how to vote.
My feelings haven't changed. If there are other council members that desire to speak, they may do so at this time.
I don't mean by abstaining, not to stand up and be counted as an individual, but to stand up as a city council member in an area that is not a province of the city council, I think would be unwise.
Knowing that there's a million times the force of Hiroshima possible to turn loose in this world is enough information.
The degree of community support for this issue has been impressive. I did not realize the mainstream support for a bilateral freeze. I particularly appreciate the rational way in which most speakers dealt with this issue tonight. I arrived here tonight as a personal supporter of the nuclear freeze. I also arrived here tonight with a strong concern about the appropriateness of the City Council action on this issue. Finally, I was ready to oppose any formal action on the issue given my strongly felt beliefs about council business. So much for the best laid plans. I will support the main motion regarding the nuclear freeze resolution.
Gary Fazzino, after listening to the citizens, realizes that he can, as a council member, support the freeze resolution.
What this discussion tonight has convinced me of is just one thing, and that is that on this particular national issue, I must take a stand. How then do I feel about the nuclear freeze? It's worth a try so long as it is verifiable and bilateral. And so long as those two words are included in the resolution, and a bell in the letter will ask them to be sent to the Soviets, as I have indicated, I will support it.
With Cobb joining Fazzino, the majority of the city council members now support a nuclear freeze resolution.
This evening, I think, is one of the most remarkable demonstrations of the democratic process that I've ever had the privilege of seeing. I hope that the grassroots movement that's spreading all across this country will gather even further steam and have effect on our national policy.
On April 19th, 1982, the city of Palo Alto voted to support a nuclear freeze. If the people of one community can change the minds of their elected officials, the people of any community could do the same thing. Ed Markey, now a senator, after 3 decades of commitment to anti-nuclear issues, recently drafted a bill to reduce nuclear weapons development and stockpiling.
America's nuclear weapons budget is locked into a Cold War time machine. It doesn't reflect our 21st century security needs. It makes no sense. It is insane that we're going to spend $84 billion for up to 14 new nuclear submarines. It's an insane strategy, but it's America's current plan. Today, I am introducing the SANE Act, the smarter approach to Nuclear Expenditures Act, with 34 of my colleagues. The SANE Act cuts $100 billion in spending over the next 10 years on outdated, wasteful nuclear weapons programs. Let's cut new nuclear weapons, not the poor, the sick, the children, and the elderly of our country.
IRA Health Fund is from Physicians for Social Responsibility. In Effects of a Nuclear Bomb, he addresses the medical, economic, environmental, and humanitarian consequences of a nuclear bomb if dropped in a metropolitan area in the United States.
Within 1,000th of a second of the detonation of this bomb, a fireball would form, reaching out for 2 miles in every direction, 4 miles across. Within this area, temperatures would rise to 20 million degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than the surface of the sun, and everything would be vaporized. The buildings, the people, the trees, the upper level of the earth itself. To a distance of 4 miles in every direction, the blast would generate winds in excess of 600 miles per hour and blast pressures greater than 25 pounds per square inch. Forces of this magnitude can destroy anything that human beings can build. Underground shelters would collapse. To a distance of 6 miles in every direction, the heat would be so intense that automobile sheet metal would melt. To a distance of 10 miles in every direction, the blast would still generate winds in excess of 200 miles per hour and blast pressures greater than 10 pounds per square inch. Forces of this magnitude would level wood frame buildings, masonry buildings. A modern steel and concrete building would see its walls and floors swept out. Just the steel skeleton would remain. To a distance of 16 miles in every direction, the heat would be so intense that everything flammable would burn. Wood, paper, cloth, heating oil, gasoline, it would all ignite. Hundreds of thousands of fires, which would, over the next half hour, coalesce into a giant firestorm, 32 miles across, covering over 800 square miles. Within this entire area, the temperature would rise to 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit. All the oxygen would be consumed, and every living thing would die. Beyond this great firestorm, the destruction would continue, and there would be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people suffering severe injuries, crush injuries, penetrating injuries, extensive burns, blindness from retinal burning. All of these people would need intensive medical care, but it would not be available because most of the hospitals would be destroyed, most of the doctors and nurses and other health professionals would be dead, there'd be no electricity to run the ventilators and the cardiac monitors, most of the medical supplies would be exhausted within hours, and the vast majority of these people would not receive any medical care at all. They would die alone and in great pain. And if this attack were part of a large-scale war between the United States and Russia, this level of destruction would be visited on every metropolitan area in the United States and in Russia. A study which Physicians for Social Responsibility published in 2003 showed that if just 300 of the warheads in the Russian arsenal detonated over urban targets in the United States, something between 75 and 100 million people would die in the first half hour. In addition, the entire economic infrastructure would be destroyed. The transportation system, the communications network, the public health system, all the things that a modern industrial country requires to maintain its population, all of these things would be gone. And it is probable that in the ensuing months, the vast majority of the American and Russian population, those who were not killed outright in the first half hour of the attack, they too would die from starvation, from exposure, from epidemic disease, from radiation poisoning.
Demand Zero presents members of Global Zero side by side with celebrities speaking out. Each individual takes a stand, calling for a world without nuclear weapons.
Today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without
nuclear weapons.
Of a world without nuclear weapons.
This matters to people everywhere.
Some argue that the spread of these weapons cannot be stopped, cannot be checked.
Such fatalism is a deadly adversary.
For if we believe that the spread of nuclear weapons is inevitable,
then in some way we are admitting to ourselves that the use of nuclear weapons is inevitable. To denounce a call for cooperation is an easy but also a cowardly thing to do. That's how wars begin.
That's where human progress ends. But make no mistake,
when we fail to pursue peace,
then it stays forever beyond our grasp. Forever beyond our grasp.
forever beyond our grasp.
It will take patience
and persistence.
But we must ignore the voices who tell us
the world cannot change.
Human destiny
will be what we make of it. Let us bridge our divisions,
build upon our hopes, and accept our responsibility
to leave this world.
To leave this world
more prosperous,
and
more peaceful than we found it.
And more peaceful than we found it.
And more peaceful than we found it.
My name is Christoph Waltz.
My name is Alec Baldwin.
My name is Naomi Watts.
Morgan Freeman.
Martin Sheen. Robert De Niro.
Zoe Kravitz.
And I demand
zero.
Zero. Zero.
Zero.
I demand zero.
Zero. Zero. Zero.
I demand zero. Zero.
Zero.
Zero.
I demand zero.
Zero.
I demand
zero. Zero.
I demand zero.
My name is Michael Douglas, and I demand zero.
The world must stand together to prevent the spread of these weapons.
Nuclear Famine documents the potential impact of a limited nuclear war today. We learn about the extraordinary power of modern nuclear warheads compared with the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
We're taught that millions of people could potentially be killed in a nuclear war or disaster. But what many people don't know is what happens after a nuclear war can be even more devastating. Most nuclear weapons today are between 8 and 30 times more powerful than the weapons that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Current estimates put the explosive power of the world's nuclear arsenals at 5,000 megatons, 400,000 times as powerful as the Hiroshima bomb. Now, let's look at a scenario. In this example, India and Pakistan each detonate 50 Hiroshima-sized nuclear weapons on the other cities. This represents less than 1/2 of 1% of the explosive power of all nuclear weapons in the world. But according to recent studies, there could be catastrophic global effects from this regional nuclear war. These 100 relatively small bombs would cause fires that would release immense amounts of smoke and other particles into the atmosphere. The reduction in sunlight would lead to the lowest temperatures on Earth in the past 1,000 years. Precipitation around the world would drop, and growing seasons in many regions would be significantly shortened, causing crop shortages and famine that would lead to the deaths of hundreds of millions of people worldwide. But wait, it gets worse. Instead of less than 1/2 of 1% of the world's bombs being set off, if a nuclear exchange were initiated with existing arsenals of strategic nuclear weapons, the effects would be colossally worse. Temperatures of many places would become inhospitable for human life. In Central North America and Eurasia, temperatures would be below freezing for 1 to 3 years. Agricultural land would become incredibly scarce in most parts of the world. Sustenance would become a luxury, and billions of people would die. The planet we live on is a delicate ecosystem. Even if a nuclear exchange takes place halfway around the world from you, nuclear famine means that you and those you love could still become victims of nuclear war. So long as nuclear weapons exist on the planet, nuclear famine means that no one is safe.
In nuclear weapons, it's time to end this threat. People living around the world share what they love in photos and film clips. The goal is to ban the use of nuclear weapons by underscoring what's at stake.
Our world is
an amazing place.
لتكون محمي من الأذى.
Te invito a que compartas con nosotros las fotografías y los videos de tu mundo.
Mais n'oublions pas ce qui est en jeu.
Congressman, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall. For he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. There's a battle outside and it's raging. It'll soon shake your windows and rattle your walls. For the times they are a-changing. For the times they are a-changing. For the times they are a-changing.
What we're seeing in this country is a movement pushing from the bottom up. Isn't it time that we direct our resources and our ingenuity toward creating a future safe from the threat of nuclear devastation?
The first essential step is a comprehensive and verifiable test ban, a complete and total halt to all nuclear explosions. The nuclear age gives us no choice. Unless we halt, we will become victims of our own genius. Science can create designs for new weapons, but without the opportunity to test them, they won't be produced or deployed.